Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this episode, I'm going to give you 5 tips for better sight reading. So why do we have sight reading as a part of our competitions and evaluations in the first place? I think it's because we want to encourage literacy. Yes, your students can play through their 3 concert pieces well, but when they leave your program, do they have the tools to be successful? And what are the most important tools for your student to have? For me, it's fundamentals. So that's what we're going to start with today, are fundamental tips to help improve sight reading. Tip number 1 is to improve tone. Tone is the most important piece of the puzzle technically. Your students have to have an understanding of values, but right above that on the hierarchy of techniques is tone. Through the research and data analysis that I've done, tone is the most important component to developing technique as a whole. And if you want more in-depth information on this, please watch Season 5, Episode 1, where I go over the data and address some of that stuff on how to create good tone at the beginning of the year. If you're watching this video and it's not the beginning of the year, please go to Season 1, Episode 1 and 2, and especially check out the demonstration videos for tone production. You can start putting these exercises into place today and help prepare your orchestra for sight reading. Tip number 2 is rehearsal etiquette. If your students aren't sitting up straight, if they're not attentive and keeping the environment right for learning, it's going to be a rough ride in the sight reading room. As a sight reading judge, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen students chit-chatting during the explanation time, chewing gum and the noodling. In many cases, that can lead to a discrepancy and maybe even a disqualification. So, and it's not that these things really have an impact on the rating directly or the evaluation directly. They don't. But if your students aren't displaying proper rehearsal etiquette, they're probably not going to be at their best. Tip number 3, starting with the bow on the string. This is a habit that needs to be ingrained into your students from day 1. The coaching cue that I use is set the bow. Set the bow. Set the bow. If your students aren't setting the bow, they're not going to play together. Having them set the bow and grabbing the string is going to help them start together, and this isn't just for the beginning of the read. It comes into effect anytime the bow leaves the string, including a rest or a retake. Setting the bow is super important for having your orchestra play together. Tip number 4 is setup. If your students aren't set up well, it's going to be difficult for them to keep their bow straight and have good left-hand technique to support good pitch. Look, as a sight reading judge, I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. I hear the same piece of music all day, sometimes for multiple days straight, depending on the size of the contest. Unless your group is one of the first groups to play, probably I have the music memorized by the time your group comes in the room, and I'm only using the score as a reference. So if I'm not looking at the score, what am I looking at? Your students. When I hear out-of-tune notes, my eyes go directly to the problem. Droopy violin, viola angles, bent wrist, bassist and cellist with their elbows pinned to their side. It's obvious. When I hear bad tone, my eyes go straight to the end pins and the positions that they're sitting at in their chair. The bass is leaning sideways, or the student's leaning sideways, or students leaning back in their chair. That's why we have bad tone. Tip 5, intonation. Creating a culture of intonation takes a very long time. We can't expect to get it right from the week or even the month before the contest or evaluation. It's important to work on intonation every rehearsal. Work on finger patterns, work on listening, work on adjusting. There are 3 basic levels for an orchestra and their intonation development. Which level best describes your orchestra? Which level best describes the individuals in your orchestra? For more information, please check out Season 1, Episode 3 for how to get your orchestra to play in tune. It's important to remember that fundamentals need to be addressed throughout the year. It's a process. Please ask your students to be patient because they aren't going to build these habits overnight. Try to connect the exercises and the lessons that you do in class to your students' values so they don't think of them as a chore, but instead as a vital component to developing a high-quality orchestra program. I hope these tips help prepare your orchestra for success in the sight reading room. For more teaching tips, please consider becoming a subscriber and sharing this content with others. Thanks for watching.